Hello, good afternoon. I've watched so many talks online that it's great to be here in real life in this DeSci haven at last. So my name's Rhys. I'm a longevity scientist and I've been a contributor to VitaDAO for about 3 years now. In case any of you are unaware, VitaDAO is a DAO which focuses on extending human health span and lifespan. And so far, we've funded around 24 projects and deployed around $4 million. And today, I'm going to talk to you about one of our initiatives, which is a journal that we run. And then this will feed into our track for this bio hackathon called the Longevity Atlas, building a decentralized knowledge network with agentic research hypothesis engine. And so to begin, for the non-scientists or those that aren't aware of the scientific publishing process, what happens is that scientists work away in the labs until they've got enough data, they write a manuscript that's ready to submit, and then they send that to an editor, and that might be with them for a couple of weeks, and at that point, it can get rejected, and then you have to send it somewhere else and quite often reformat it for the particular journal's structure, or if they like it, they can then send it to peer review. And then it tends to be around 3 or 4 peer reviewers, and this can take anywhere from around 4 to 6 weeks for them to get back. They send it to the editor has a look, he might reject it, and then you go back to square one again, reformat, send to a different journal, or he might send it to, might have some revisions that you need to do. And now biological experiments take a long time, so the revision process can take weeks, if not months to do, and then you send them back, and then there might be more revisions, and so the process can take a long time. And at any stage, you can be rejected and go back to square one again. And I'd say the average time frame for a submission to being published is around a year, and this is quite a long time, as we were discussing earlier, that the science is already old by now. It was discovered a year or 2 ago, and it's not even been published yet. One of the benefits of this process is that it helps to increase the scientific integrity, so you have more trust in the research that's coming out. But at the same time, it's a huge delay from discovery to dissemination, and then that also has risks with scientists being scooped during that period. If someone else publishes it, they can no longer publish it, and their career relies on these to get grants, to get more funding, to do more research. So it's a bit of an issue. And so along came preprints, which helped to solve a lot of these issues. And they're essentially repositories for scientists to upload their manuscripts as soon as they are ready. And what this does is it allows the scientists to share their discoveries with the world immediately. And it also signals to the world who made the discovery and allows the community to start giving earlier feedback. And another positive is that there are no paywalls on the preprint servers so that everyone can see the research. One of the big drawbacks is that it's not peer reviewed, so the findings haven't been scrutinized. And so this can be open to misinterpretation by the media or the public. However, for scientists, they're really good because it allows them to keep up to date. However, as you could imagine, there's a lot of research that's going on daily, so the number of preprints being uploaded to these servers is hundreds per day, so it makes it incredibly difficult to keep up. And so at VitaDAO, we decided to start our own preprint curation, and it's a journal called an overlay journal in which we spotlight the most interesting longevity research each quarter, and so we give visibility to what we think is really, really important research at current time as opposed to years in the future when it's no longer novel because other people have probably showed similar things or whatnot. And so the way we go about this is each quarter I curate a long list of about 60 preprints, and then we had an editorial board of 5 longevity PhDs, and we would all vote on these preprints to whittle them down to 10. And then we recruited around 35 key opinion leaders in the longevity space, and we got them to vote on-chain to determine the rank order of these preprints, which actually you could imagine was quite an interesting thing to do, setting professors up with their own crypto wallets. the amount of issues that we had, from lost password, lost seed phrases, one even managed to get hacked and have their wallet drained. It was interesting. As we know, the UI, UX of crypto still needs a lot of work, but you can see here on the right-hand side is one of our snapshot votes that we had. So we could see that 21 people thought the impact of short-lived controls was the most important preprint of that quarter. And so we were able to shine a spotlight on that and show the world what really cool research is going on. And here you can see one of the issues of the Longevist. So the 3 which were voted the top were given curator's choice status, and they were all adorned with their own human AI hybrid artwork, which was created by Simon McLennan, which many of you probably know is a graphical wizard. He's been fantastic for VitaDAO and all the DAOs and everything. He's brilliant. And so far, we've managed to have our ISSN number awarded to us, so that we're like an official journal. We've collaborated with bioRxiv. They now have introduced a little communities tab, which allows discussion to occur on their platform for research. And when you click on a Longevist featured preprint, you can see the conversation that can go on, so that people are discussing this research rather than it just being behind closed doors in peer review for a long time. We were also featured as a development in the field in rejuvenation research, and we also formed a collaboration with one of the aging journals, MPG Aging, that allowed any of our curator's choice preprints to go straight to peer review. So if someone didn't want to go through the editorial, desk rejection, resubmit phase, they'd know that if they had curator's choice status, they could go straight to peer review in this journal. And moving forward, we really want to empower our readers in a few different ways. And so we want to increase the frequency of our curation. So at the moment, it was quarterly, which is probably all we could really ask of the key opinion leaders. But we really want to step it up to monthly to give more up-to-date, because one of the issues with quarterly is by the time the quarter's over and we do the shortlisting and then the voting and then getting the issue out, some of the preprints could already be like 5 months old, and that's like the opposite to what we wanted to achieve. Is we want to tell people what the most important research is right now. And so we're hoping to step up to a monthly curation. And we also want to provide tools to make the scientific literature easier for people to understand, not just at the level of scientists, but anyone who's interested, no matter what their background, no matter what their age. We want to set up an agent that you can have discussions with and has a really good understanding of the literature that can explain it to a 3-year-old up until a top-level professor. And so to achieve this, we're going to gradually transition to automated curation by developing our bespoke Longevist AI agent, LAIA, and she'll be designed to autonomously curate and analyze the most groundbreaking longevity preprints. And this is going to be the new workflow funnel for the journal. And so scientists will continue to upload their preprints to repositories such as bioRxiv, medRxiv. And then we've developed a scraping code, which is essentially a number of keywords to do with longevity, health span, hallmarks of aging, that then filter out all of the ones that are longevity related. But within that, you still do get a lot of false positives coming out, and that's where LAIA is then going to step in. We're going to get her, is she a her? She can be a her, to then curate the ones that she thinks are the most interesting, and then at the end of the month, LAIA can then choose the top 10 and also provide a rationale for why exactly she chose these. And here we have the roadmap. So we're going to set up the agent and allow her to start suggesting high-quality preprints, and eventually we want her to sort of run autonomously. And once we're happy with her that she can essentially curate really good preprints, we're going to relaunch the Longevist. We're currently paused at the moment while we're developing this. And so to begin, we're going to have LAIA's curation with the human curation, and we're going to work together to form that. But then as we go on, we want to turn to being the journal completely automated, so there will be no human input, and we can just have a monthly curation of the top research coming around. And then we also want to expand LAIA's usage across lots of other VitaDAO initiatives. So one of the ones that we have is Vita Labs. So it's a new model that VitaDAO has where we're taking more of a venture studio take on funding research. And so we're inviting people in to come up with ideas from the ground up, and then we'll fund their basic ideas to the proof of principle stage. And then if they've got legs and are promising, then we can potentially do an IPT and raise further funds for that research. And yeah, eventually all of this will be protocolized and automated. And so this brings us on to the track for this hackathon. And so, as we've said, the amount of research in the longevity space is increasing exponentially, and it's hard to filter out what's important from the noise. So the main challenge of this track is to create a decentralized knowledge network that comprehensively maps all of the hallmarks of aging, their interconnections, and create a hypothesis generation engine. And we want to build a system that not only generates hypotheses with contextual evidence, but contributes to a shared knowledge layer through Origin Trails DKG plugin. And with providing a curation of over 500 plus longevity papers to help with the training of this, that are all up within a year old. And there are numerous desired outcomes that we have from this track, and so we want to see a comprehensive knowledge cartography, we want to have a contribution to the biograph, an interactive visualization system, as we said, an autonomous hypothesis engine, and then documentation on the system architecture, the different data sources, a knowledge graph ontology. And then we want to have decentralized knowledge integration, so to utilize Origin Trails DKG plugin to contribute to the publicly accessible biograph. And I've said that we'll be looking to form this on the hallmarks of aging. And for those of you who are not in the field, there's been a collective effort to try to define what exactly is aging, and so far they've come up with a number of hallmarks which seem to be essentially markers of age that happen to all human beings with time. And so we've got genomic instability, so that's your DNA, it gets damaged, it loses the ability to repair itself. So you've got loss of proteostasis, so proteins are involved in essentially doing most of the functions in a cell, but with time they sort of become, well, due to mutations and things, and due to redox environment and different stresses, proteins function become impaired. There's cellular senescence, so lots of cells have the ability to divide, but eventually they make a decision to not divide again if they've accumulated a big amount of damage. And that's thought to be a tumor suppressor mechanism to stop them from carrying on and producing daughter cells which become cancerous. But the issue of cellular senescence is, the idea is that they are to get removed by the immune system, but as your immune system starts to falter with age, the clearance of them decreases, and they actually secrete a lot of inflammatory factors into the environment, which causes a lot of damage to the surrounding tissue, and paradoxically can lead to like a pro-cancerous environment, which leads on to chronic inflammation, sort of the infiltration of immune cells. And then we have telomere attrition. So telomeres won the Nobel Prize. These are little caps on the end of your chromosomes which get degraded without time. And yeah, the list goes on. There's nutrient sensing, stem cell exhaustion, epigenetic alterations. And so for the hackathon, we'd like people to encompass all of the hallmarks of aging into the model. And this will be evaluated on a number of metrics. So we've got scientific accuracy, so the correctness of the extracted information and biological connections. We've got knowledge organization, cross-hallmark integration, automated research quality, hypothesis evidence, DKG implementation, and the user experience. And you can see all of these online, which I'll give the link to in a sec. And then the winning hypotheses will be subject to eligibility screening and vetting via paper QA2. And as I mentioned before, we've enlisted quite a large number of key opinion leaders in the longevity field that have been set up with their crypto wallets. And so what we can do is we can take the hypotheses that are generated from the hackathon and get them to vote on Snapshot to determine which of the hypotheses they think are the best. And then eligible hypotheses could also be referred to our in-house venture studio, Vita Labs, which I mentioned before. And so any hypotheses that come from this hackathon, we can potentially test in the laboratory with Vita Labs. And if any of them get positive results and we want to take them further, we could do an IPT raise and give a share of the IPTs to the developers. And so, yeah, we've got the hackathon, but then we could also take it further into real-world scientific research. And then I think there's one more. Okay, so the last slide was just a timeline of the hackathon, which you can see on ai.vitadao.com. And yeah, that's all I have to say. And if there are any scientific or publication questions, you can direct them towards me. Or if there's anything more AI related, I'm looking at Leo, our AI guy at VitaDAO. So yeah, thank you for listening.
Waiting on the microphone for a second. We'll see if anyone has questions. All right. Does anyone have questions that they'd like to ask? I see one over here.
Thank you. Super interesting. My question is about this agent that would be able to select preprint papers. Do you envision a function like a feedback to the research group in terms of like, oh, if you could add this experiment or if you could add this kind of information, your paper would be much better? I mean, ultimately, this could become a research advisor, right?
Yeah, I think something like that would be fantastic. And I think that's kind of what the sort of preprint servers want to happen with their, so I showed the community tab, and the bioarchive people, when we spoke to them, were saying they wanted a way that you could have like attestations on the bioarchive essentially, and it could have one for statistical reliability, scientific reliability, even like grammar or whatever you could have. And so if you were able to sort of quantify the integrity of scientific papers pre-peer review, you could essentially not need peer review. And so, yeah, exactly. If we have our agent that's capable of analyzing these papers, we have got no incentive to let the journals have their time. We would, yeah, definitely get in contact with them and tell them. We were discussing with Alex using the yes-no error for all of the curated preprints that we're going to use. We're going to, as a perk for the researchers, run it through that, because you need a crypto wallet, and obviously getting all the curated researchers to do that is going to be difficult. So one of the things we will do is to run all of our curations through that as well. But yeah, definitely, once LAIA is up and running with 100%, we'll definitely, yeah, message the researchers with their suggestions.
Thank you.
All right. Does anyone else see Lucas has one?
Hi. Amazing presentation. I was just wondering whether would you be able to get the KOLs basically to do peer reviewed for some of the publications like preprint?
Would we be able to get the what, sorry?
Peer review, some randomly chosen preprints maybe, and compare it to basically the peer review of the agent to basically do some benchmarking.
Yeah, I think that would be an interesting thing to do. So we can track the preprints. On the servers, you can follow the preprints, and then you get updates when they're published. And a lot of the journals do have their peer reviews made public. So I think, yeah, that would be a really good exercise to compare LAIA to human and see what happens. There could be an additional way of training inputs. Yeah, I think that'd be a really good idea.
I mean, this way you could actually prove that the agent is as good as, for example, the reviewer, right? So it would actually be cool.
Yeah, and I would not be surprised.
Me neither.
Even just with straight up ChatGPT or whatever, and I'd type in things to do with particular research. It's astounding at how good they are now at finding holes and things. Yeah. So yeah, it's exciting times.
Nice.
So I actually have a question from my side. I love kind of the idea of starting to move past peer review as the sole mechanism for the validation of scientific research. Would love to hear what thoughts you have as to validation in a more agentic world, as opposed to recreating some of the current human processes that we have.
So instead of the traditional peer review with a human take, we're going to see what the agents come up with.
As we think about, are there other forms of scientific validation which you think further in the future could start to be valuable outside of just peer review on the manuscript?
So I think you can analyze them at lots of different levels. I don't know what an agent's going to see in the research. So they might see things that we've not even thought about, right? So was being discussed earlier, that it's all hallucinations. It's just that some of them are meaningful to us, and we pluck those ones out. What will be really interesting is to see what patterns come out of the agents and try to interpret what exactly they found. Because there might be ways of peer reviewing that we just don't know about right now. And so I think it'll be really interesting just to set them up on the data and see what they come out with. And who knows what that might look like, but it'd be interesting to see.
Could be really cool. Does anyone else have questions? Going once, going twice. All right. Thank you, Rhys.
Thank you.
Much appreciated.